Hi, and welcome to a Small Medium at Large podcast. I'm your host, Gail Hyson, bringing you intimate interviews beyond normal boundaries. I want to tell you something a little bit of our special guest who's returning with us today. We're so happy to have Sean McNamara here with us again. I want to tell you, Sean is a clinical mental health counselor, hypnotherapist, psychedelic guide, and meditation teacher. He has also helped people experience their psychic potential for over a decade. He offers training based on his own experience with out of body experiences, telekinesis, remote viewing, and telepathy. Telepathy Training for Neurotypicals is Sean's 11th book. Some of his other books, just to mention a few here, are Mindsight, which is Training to See Without Eyes, a pilot program for adults. Meditation X, Telekinesis, the mindfulness practice of moving matter with subtle energy and intention. Signal and Noise, advanced psychic training from remote viewing, clairvoyance, and ESP. Defy Your Limits, the telekinesis training method. And Renegade Mystic and its companion book, Concise Instructions for Lucid Dreaming and the Out of Body Experience. His next major intensive workshop is happening this September in Colorado, where he and co teacher Wendy Gallant will be teaching telepathy and seeing beyond eyes. You can learn more about him and the intensive at www dot capital M lowercase I N D capital P lowercase O SSIBLE.com. Let's welcome Sean here today. Hi, Sean.
Hi, Gail. Thanks for having me back. It feels like it's been such a long time.
It
Yeah.
has, and but you're looking as youthful as ever, and we're so happy to see you and have you here today. I want to talk about your book, but I have a few questions before we get into the book, which really relate to the book. And this is really because I never know exactly who our audience is. So I like to be clear with some of them who maybe are not familiar with what some of these terms are. So I was wondering if you could give us the definition of telepathy and why are people interested in telepathy and is it so more now than ever?
Yeah, so telepathy, one way to define it is in contrast to something like clairvoyance, where let's say clairvoyance is seeing something that's not right in front of your eyes, or seeing a picture that's hidden in an envelope, seeing an
Mhm.
object or an event psychically. But telepathy is about two minds communicating with each other. So the easiest way to say it is it's reading someone's mind. But it's more than that. It's also sending information to someone and that they receive it. And of course, it can be more broad than that. Is it more than just two humans who are alive talking to each other? Yeah, it could be between a human who's alive and a pet who's alive. It could be between a human who's alive and a human who's on the other side and deceased and communicating.
Mhm.
And I know, I've been approached by people who are part of some traditional mainstream religions who are bothered by the idea of telepathy. And all I can say is when you're in church and you're told to get down on your knees and make your hands go like this and then say some words to the guy upstairs, what is that? That's telepathy,
Yes.
right? You're communicating with your mind. So,
And you're waiting to hear an answer or a
yeah,
guidance. So that
yeah.
is that right. So, but they don't relate that word to that religious experience or method. In fact, I know that you had a very impressive experience, and I was wondering if you could share the story of the passing of your dad and you're going into the junk room,
Uh,
because I think that was a very impressive, and you even have a photograph to show what happened there. And I think that this happens to other people, but sometimes they're afraid to share it. But most people, when they lose a loved one, have experiences like this. So I was wondering if you could share that to support people in knowing that this is possible.
yeah, I'd be happy to, because I think I start my very first chapter with this story. And the thing about this is, even the process of writing this book seemed to be connected to everything else happening in my life, what happened with my dad, what happened with the people I've worked with. Everything seems to be, a part of this cosmic web where it's already not predetermined, but the connections are already there. So what happened was, so my dad died in 2 Octobers ago, and a few weeks after he had passed, I was still in mourning. I was still in
Mhm.
grief, and I was just sitting. I play guitar, not well, but I played, and I was sitting on the floor of my office, and I had just been thinking about him and playing guitar and just sending him some love and wishing him well. And then it was time for me to go to bed, and so I went to sleep, and then I had something that I can't just call a typical dream. It was
Mhm.
more along the lines of a lucid dream or an out of body experience, or it was I was aware during this experience. And I've had other experiences that I've written about that are similar to that. And I know many audience members will have had a similar experience where that was more than a dream. I felt like I was somewhere else and it was happening. And the way the scene opened up in this experience was, I'm going through a mountain trail or through a forest in the mountains with my dad, except he looks so much younger. So he was in his 80s when he passed, but in this experience, he seemed to be in his 30s, and he was wearing like a white sweater, and I just remember the brightness coming off of him
Mhm.
and the life, and he was smiling and happy, and he wasn't necessarily the happiest guy while he was alive. So this is the whole thing is strange, and I think the strangeness helped me be crystal clear while it was happening. Like, whoa, this is unusual.
Mhm.
So we're hiking together, and I'm just feeling all this love and this joy, and he's full of energy. And then the scene shifts, and we're walking through our his neighborhood and walking into my mom and dad's house. And he's beckoning me to follow him, and he goes up the stairs, and I follow him, and he enters this room that is typically locked. And it's my mom's junk room. And
I love that.
she always keeps it locked because she's embarrassed by it, right? And the rest of the house, she keeps her home super clean. But this one room is like her place where she can just let it all go and no one needs to know. And so she's always kept it locked. But in this experience, my dad walks right in, so it's unlocked somehow. Well, because this is not this reality. And I follow him in there, and there's boxes and junk everywhere, kind of like it is in real life. But he walks over and he grabs a guitar that had been like on the ground with some junk, and he's just holding it up in his hand like this and smiling at me. He's holding it by the neck with this really strange smile on his face. I'm like, whoa. And um, and then the experience sort of fades out after that, and I probably open my eyes and I'm lying in bed, and I'm just like, it feels, when these things happen, it feels like I was just there,
Mhm.
and my eyes open and I'm back in this reality. It's very strange. So the day goes, and I'm later on that day, after that morning, I'm visiting my mom in that house, and we're just chatting, and I keep remembering that nighttime experience I had. I said, Mom, I had this weird dream about Dad, and in the dream he took me in your room, that special room you keep. Can you let me in, please? And she put a little resistance up. She's like, "Yeah, fine. You want to go take a look? Here, She unlocks it for me.
Mhm.
I open the door and I see junk in boxes, just like in the scene from the night before. But over on one side, the side where my dad had been standing the night before, I see the neck of a guitar sticking out from a pile of like boxes and junk. And I was like, I can't believe this. And I walk over and I pull it out, and I realize I'm holding it up just the way he was holding it up last night. And it's a real guitar. I didn't know the existence of this guitar. It's not my guitar. And
Mhm.
I'm like, Mom, come in here. She's like, what? Come in here. What's with this guitar? This is the guitar. I dreamt about it last night. Dad was holding it. She's like, I think we got it for one of my nieces, basically, one of my sister's kids. But obviously, she hadn't played it for a long time, and it must have been in that room for years. So it's just really interesting. This guitar I didn't know existed was in that room, and until that happened, until I went in that room, I thought the reason I had a dream about my dad holding a guitar was because I had actually been playing guitar before going to sleep the night before. That would have allowed me to just explain it away. What a very intense dream. Ha ha ha. But to
Uh-huh.
go into the room and check and find a guitar that I did not know existed.
In a room that's locked that you never even got to go inside.
Right.
There
Yeah.
have and what I keep getting the feeling is that, which I'm trying to understand more about telepathy because I have a lot of telepathy. It's that I feel like he was trying to bring your attention with the guitar because you were playing the guitar and he knew that this was a way to be able to get your attention.
Mhm.
So he picked like I think this is such an incredibly great, impressive i- way of showing people that yes, the people who have passed on are trying to communicate with you. And I
Mhm.
also find, just like you were saying, that he was 30 years old and bright and happy and not seeming like the one that he was when he was 80s.
Mhm.
That's how I've experienced when I connect with someone that's deceased. They're
Mhm.
never like old, decrepit, whatever. They seem to be in their happiest time of their life, or they're at an age, it's not like they're 12 or something, but they're at like an adult age, but that in a very happy place. And so all those things to me were all the elements of this really being a very real connection and communication with your dad. I had no question in my mind that he didn't come to get your attention and show you that. And also to bring you comfort because it's very hard to lose someone that you love.
Mhm.
And I think that was his other way of also like being able to reach out to you. I mean, I shouldn't be deciding what your telepathy was, but I really do
That's okay.
believe that this is
Yeah.
was a very real example of communication.
Yeah. Well, and I know that he had always had a very firm belief in the afterlife. That was
Oh,
very
great.
clear for him. I mean, you know, he was Catholic, um, and he'd had brothers and sisters of his own die, and his parents passed on. But he always had this firm belief that he would see them on the other side. So, and I think he loved it was just right up his alley to reach out to me from the
Hmm.
other side. I mean, in the last 10 or 15 years of his life, he spent a lot more time, I mean, he always did, but watching TV, and he really got into paranormal stuff. I think partly is he was really proud of me for the books I've written and everything,
Hmm.
but he really got into YouTube videos. I mean, Bigfoot, Loch Ness Monster, UFOs, you name it, he was all in. And so I have a belief that he must have loved the opportunity to reach through the afterlife to contact his son. He's like, I'm in. I
Yes.
want to get involved in this. I'm going to be part of what you're doing.
And
That's how I receive it. Yeah.
I think, and he said, I want to be part of this book.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
I, I just have to, I want to talk about the different telepathies because I had one this morning and I didn't plan to be able to tell you that on this show, but it's one that I've had for about 30 years.
Mhm.
And it's with a very dear friend of mine whose name is Julio. And he's a Huichol Indian who lives in the mountains of Mexico. And he basically doesn't, uh, he's not heavily literate. He doesn't read or write really. And he's a pure Huichol Indian. And when we got to meet each other back in the late 90s, I think I met him the first time, or early 90s. We've been friends for about 30 years. I had no way to ever communicate with him because in the mountains of Mexico where he lives, there's no running water, there's no electricity, there's nothing.
Mhm.
And I would always have this either a dream or I would send him a telepathic message and he would receive it and he'd go to a switchboard and he would call me.
Hmm.
And we would always have also like I would know when he was sick or something was happening to him, and he would know when something was happening to me. So we would always call each other telepathically first and then make the connection with an actual phone, which would come within a day of making that telepathy. Sometimes I would send the message and I'd find him walking up my driveway, right after I'd say, if Julio could just appear now, we could solve the problem. And he would just walk up out of nowhere from Mexico. So it's a really tight thing that we've been doing for years.
Yeah.
So I need him again right now. And I call up my daughter, and she's in San Diego now. And I say, Nancy, because she speaks fluent Spanish, and my Spanish, sometimes I want to be sure we got the message across. Are you coming? Or sometimes we can be confused, but she's got, complete clarity in the language. So I said, could you call Julio or send a message to the family or something? Because now we have cell phones. But for the first 20 years, Julio and I had no cell phones, and we did it telepathically, and it always worked. We
Mhm.
even dreamed together where we both had the same dream at the same time and told each other what was in the dreams. So she goes to call him up and leave a message, and she looks on her phone, and he had called her an hour after I said to her, I really need to hear from him. It's been months, and I need him now. So I'm just saying, telepathically, it still works, and it worked this morning, ready for the show.
Yeah.
And I think that also about telepathy is that in other cultures, it was a normal way of communicating.
Mhm.
More in the old days, or when before there were phones and things. When I would be in the mountains, people would appear out of nowhere, and I'd say, how did they know to be here? But they just did.
Mhm.
So I think we relied differently in times past before we had communication devices.
Mhm.
Telepathy was the thing. And I was wondering if you could just talk a little bit also about telepathy with, say, animals or interdimensional beings, or that there's telepathy directly like I had with Julio. There's telepathy like you had with your father. And then there's telepathy that can be with a non-speaking person on the other end.
Yeah. Well, so with animals, I what I should really do is refer people to Rupert Sheldrake. Just look him up on Amazon because he has a book about communicating with animals. But he did a study about animals, let's say dog owners, that they would put a camera in the person's home and the person would go to work. And as part of the study, they would tell the person randomly what time to start heading home to see if the animal would know when the owner was heading home. And he found statistical statistically significant evidence that the dogs would just start at heading over to the window or heading to the front door to wait for the owners to come home when the owner made the decision to leave work and start driving home.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so the animals just knew. Um, and I think not related to that study, but I remember hearing an interview with, I think it was with Rupert Sheldrake, maybe someone else, but about this parrot, a very famous parrot who was very psychic and who could speak. And you'd have the parrot in another room, and a person would be in another room reading a magazine or something, and the parrot would say something about what the person was looking at the magazine. Like even a parrot could
Wow.
read this person's mind. I really wish I remember the parrot's name. But if people look up Rupert Sheldrake and then the study he did about dogs knowing when their owners are coming home, that's a really good piece of evidence for that.
Hmm.
Now, with other beings, I talk about an experience I had when I was doing a different ESP study involving psychedelics. And in one of my experiments, I was on LSD doing a telepathy experiment with my wife. And I just remember at one point, I was really trying to perceive what she was drawing, making a drawing in another room. And it just felt suddenly, because I was really trying to get in there and perceive, but it felt like a force was just shutting me down. Like, that's enough.
Hmm.
That's enough. And it really
Hmm.
felt like something else. And there, I have different reasons to suspect it was maybe something non-human, because I've had well, I don't know if I can call them dreams, but I've had otherworldly experiences with those types of beings. So whether they're lucid dreams or out of body experiences or something else, I've had several, and this just kind of had that feeling to it. Like this is something else, and this whatever this is kind of trying to limit my exploration.
Investigating.
At least that for that session, they're like, that's enough, shut it down. So, but it was still a pretty good telepathy experiment. The results were pretty good. So, um,
Yeah, I think this is. Uh, I'm finding out all these. I just returned from a conference in Virginia called the Acorn Conference, and it's applied cognition. Oh, I can't remember all the letters it symbols for, but it's all different therapists and psychologists and researchers working on areas that are considered more taboo, like past lives, out of body, these sorts of things, and how to deal with and treat people that are dealing with these issues. And what I had heard about, which I did not know much about until I was reading your book, was the telepathy tapes. Because one of the gentlemen there, oh God, I forget his name, but he was presenting about past lives in working with autistic children and past lives. And this is when I started to hear, and I guess this is going to be in one of the future telepathy podcasts, will be this interview about autistic children and their past life experiences, because they're discovering a tremendous amount about the past lives. So we're not going to talk about that today because we're talking about telepathy. But for the listeners like myself, this was all new news to me. I don't know a whole lot about this. Could you tell them a little bit about the telepathy tapes and what was actually happening in this, and also what the difference is between the abilities of, say, autistic children and those of neurotypicals?
yeah. And just to be clear for the audience, I have nothing to do with the telepathy tapes.
Right.
I'm just a big fan. But for those who are interested, I would say go to thetelepathytapes.com or look up the telepathy tapes on YouTube. You'll see they have a channel, also
Hmm.
on Spotify, and they have 2 seasons with some extras now. But it's something that someone recommended it to me. I think because I taught telepathy classes for a while by then, and I started listening to it, and I was so inspired. And it's really this journalist Kai Dickens
Hmm.
working with some scientists and meeting families that had children who were profoundly autistic with very little control over their bodies and non-verbally, not speaking with words. They can communicate in other ways with letterboards or with body movements or other sounds, but not communicating the way you and I are right now, Gail. And they found that these children could very easily know what was happening in their caretakers' minds, whether it's their parent or a teacher, but people that they spent a lot of time with, they they just knew exactly what the person was thinking. A parent could go shopping for a gift or something and then come home and try and hide it. But their child, if they could walk, they could easily just go and find out where the hidden gift was. They just
Hmm.
knew while the parent was shopping that the parent was shopping for something for them. And that's just one of hundreds of different kinds of examples that are revealed in the telepathy tapes. But it's really beyond just the telepathy, it's such a spiritual, I guess I could call it a spiritual revelation that's happening, what these children have to share. For example, they have a way, these children who live around the world and around the country, of course, they have meeting places. These are non physical meeting places. And there's one that's now famous called The Hill.
Yes, that's the one I heard about.
Hill.
Okay.
And where they go and hang out with each other mentally.
Uh, This is fantastic.
It's extraordinary, right? And I was so inspired by it that I spent for a few weeks. I would go to sleep at night. I just wanted to help somehow. I was like, let's
Hmm.
make it help. So I'd go to sleep at night and try and project my mind to the hill. So here I am being this uninvited intruder. I feel a little bit bad because I'm like, I don't belong there, but I wanted to go there. I wanted to just say, hey, I want to help. And I would say, hey, my name is Sean. And this is while I'm lying in bed in the dark, right? I'm just thinking this. My name is Sean. This is my phone number. If there's any way I can help, please have a caretaker contact me. And I would repeat that over and over and over. And sometimes I would feel like energy's coming, but I don't know if that's real or not. And eventually I stopped after a few weeks. But then one day I got a message on Facebook from someone named Migdalia Burgoyne or Dahlia Burgoyne, as most people know her. the mother of Lidu Burgoyne, who they're very famous now because they're going now and teaching workshops on telepathy and also mind sight, seeing without eyes. They're teaching, but her so Dahlia contacted me and told me about her daughter. I said, "Well, that's very strange that you contacted me because I've been communicating with the hill, offering help, and now you're contacting me." And so we had a Zoom chat, and it turns out that somehow they had picked up on my message to the hill,
That's
and then her daughter
fantastic.
had influenced her somehow psychically to contact me.
Mhm.
It's very subtle stuff, and it's so easy to doubt because of the subtlety. Like, is this real? Really? Part of
It
me,
is.
I have my inner critic, and then I
Mm-hmm.
have my inner believer, and they're always going at it with everything I do, which is really not great, but that's just how I'm built. But so and I write about this Zoom call that we had and this interaction with the hill in the book too. But it was just really interesting. And so my hope is that the book that I wrote will somehow help them connect with other people who can help autistic children.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think this is just the beginning of the story for autism and for other people who are um, have other challenges that include not being in control of their body. Because I think because of the lack of control of body, that means most of their mind is occupying the greater space, right? They're
Mm-hmm.
mostly out of their body. And so maybe that's why they're so psychic. And so that's why I titled my book Telepathy Training for Neurotypicals, because these children who we could apply the psychological label neurodivergent to, they're extremely psychic, but regular people like me are not psychic like that. We we can experience it a little bit, but not like these kids. So I wanted to differentiate us from them, not to be divisive, but just to say, look, if you're a neurotypical, whatever that means,
Mm-hmm.
this book might help you experience your telepathy. But it's not going to help people experience it the way these autistic children do. They're on a whole other level.
I think it's amazing that you came up with the idea to try to communicate with them from your house to the place called the Hill. It makes me want to try that as well. I don't know. It just seems like what a phenomenal thing to do. And for any of us as listeners that are listening right now that know autistic children, I had a friend I've made that I only met on the phone, but he just produced a film on PBS.org, and it's called Understanding Autism. And he is an autistic filmmaker who's made very famous films and things you've seen on TV and in theaters. And he decided to come out and share his life of dealing with autism and raising autistic children. And he went around and interviewed autistic people and children around the country, and it's a beautiful 1 hour documentary. And he does specify that he answers a question that working with non-speaking autistic children or people was the highlight of his experience making the documentary. So anyone who needs more information about autistic children, I would suggest that if you haven't seen it. It's an hour, and it's a very beautiful documentary. So, so I think this is an amazing thing. And the idea that all of those children could come together and have a place to communicate. To me, this is amazing information that I think is. I spoke to another friend about it, Sean Rubin, and he said he thinks that they may be making a film out of the telepathy tapes, and that there's someone working on that might working with your menu, the person you mentioned, Kai, and that there may be a film in the future. So listeners, keep your eyes out and see what comes up. So I want to ask you more now about directly about your book. I was wondering, why did you set up this type of experiment? And if you could just describe to some of the people what exactly you did in this book, that what you wrote about, what were these different types of experiments you set up?
Yeah, so it's really a report about a week-long training that I led in the Rocky Mountains in a little town called Estes Park in Colorado just last September. I asked the participants if they would give me permission to print their transcripts and their results and talk about their experiences. And most of them did. Some wanted to remain anonymous, which I totally respect.
Mm-hmm.
People, certain people have a need for privacy for different reasons, but most of them were willing to share their results. And I thought this is a wonderful opportunity. So I'm going to keep a careful record of everything that happens during this retreat. And it was based on several different exercises we did throughout the week to develop people's telepathy and their general psychic ability. So, for example, one of the very first trainings that we did was to train the people to identify the feeling of basic shapes. Like, what does a square feel like? If I'm drawing a square on a piece of paper
Interesting.
and they know that I'm drawing a square, but can they try and just feel it? And then, same thing with a triangle, circle, and a loop de loop and other shapes. So that kind of initial training, which is not exactly telepathy because I told them what shape I was doing, but I'm priming their mind to start to associate shapes with a certain feeling or perception that they would have at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And after that, then I would draw some just very basic line drawings. And now they had no clue what I was drawing. And I would focus on this line drawing for about 4 minutes, and they can't see what I'm drawing. No one else has any idea what I'm drawing, and each one of them had a piece of paper, and they're just trying to relax using the instructions that I gave them, trying to perceive what I'm focusing on, and then they draw what they think I'm focusing on, right?
Mm-hmm.
And over and over again, there's some really great hits. Now, this isn't like the movies, right? They're not doing Xerox copies of the picture that I'm drawing.
Mm-hmm.
But they're drawing similar, close enough, and similar enough impressions that there's clearly a connection between us. That some part of their mind is picking up qualities of the image that I'm focusing on. And then we did other exercises like a lot of these were team exercises. So
Mm-hmm.
that let's say we're trying to focus on just perceiving shapes again, but now this person has a whole team of people who know what the target is, and all their teammates are trying to send them the information. So they're getting help, right? And we did it with colors, with shapes, again with basic drawings, things like that. And they would draw or they would report what they thought they were perceiving. So this is evidential stuff. This
Mm-hmm.
isn't like going to a psychic at your local fair who says, in 3 years, you'll meet a tall man who works in oil and then you're going to move to California. It's not like that. It's like direct evidence. Here's the
Mm-hmm.
target. Show me your piece of paper. Let's see what's connected, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there were so many astonishing connections, and all those pictures are printed in the book so that people can see the target and what people came up with. As part of the training, we also did things like remote viewing, which is more along the lines of clairvoyance with a protocol. But the way we did it, which is very traditional remote viewing, but I put a slight twist on it. I focused more on this thing called feedback. So I should
Mm-hmm.
explain this very carefully for the person
Yes.
listening. So imagine that I have a picture of a scene and I stuff it in an envelope and I give it a 6-digit coordinate. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, for example.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell the remote viewer, hey, write this coordinate down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, focus on that and draw and write whatever comes to you associated with that number. So they're basically using their clairvoyance and they're writing it down. Now it's time for what's called the feedback session, where they're going to get feedback. They're going to see the actual target and get to compare it with their drawing and whatever words they wrote down. But during the feedback session, I have the people, see the image. And in this case, it wasn't pictures in envelopes. These were digital files that I had projected on the wall, right? So they were
Mm-hmm.
saved on my computer. But I had them treat the session very specifically, where they had to focus on the image and write down and draw the image and write down words describing it. And when they did that, to send the information mentally back to themselves when they first did the viewing session. And I call that auto telepathy
Hmm.
because they're basically doing telepathy with themselves across time,
Interesting. Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Um, and some of those results are astonishing. People did a great job with that. We did one version of this called an outbounder remote viewing experiment where the target was a place they would go the next day. So that would be their feedback, being at this location that was the target. So the day before, I give them a coordinate and then give them some time to just try and receive what their future self is going to be sending them.
Hmm.
So they're having a conversation with their future self and drawing and writing down what they get. And the next day, I take them to the target location, which happened to be um, this aerial tram in Estes Park. And I
Hmm.
bought them all tickets, and they all got on the tram going up the mountain. So imagine this red cabin on wires going up the side of a mountain. And one of the people drew that exact scene.
Wow.
It was a 10 out of 10. It was amazing, and that's in the book too. So, and again, this is they're having conversations with their future self.
Hmm.
It's
That's
astonishing, right?
right, because when I was reading in the book, and I have to say they are amazing. I've done a lot of remote viewing and these sort of things, and I thought the pictures I was seeing, the drawings they were doing, I was blown away. And a lot of these people aren't trained in any of this; they're just learning. Then there's just their beginnings, and they were doing phenomenal results. So I I'm I'm wondering how were they feeling when they were hitting the targets because this was new for a lot of them, right? This was not an experience they'd had before. What were the reactions when the people were seeing on the page that they were getting the information correctly?
Yeah. Well, it was really all over the place. Some people, and some of them did have some prior psychic training. Some of them were also psychic teachers. But especially for the beginners, they would see, they would compare the target to what they drew, and sometimes they wouldn't even be able to see the connection. Like some part of
Mm.
their brain was like, it couldn't be. I don't see any connection. Then I'd have to walk over and say, look, do you see this big triangle you drew in this part? Do you see this triangle there? Do you see this line here? And do you see this line here? Do you see it? They had to, had to soften them up a little bit to like see there's actually an actual connection here. So for some of them, sometimes part of their ego structure just couldn't accept it.
Hmm.
In other cases, some of them were super jazzed. I mean, some of these were astonishing, and it was very obvious that there was a very clear connection between their past and future selves talking to each other. So, but it's and everything in between, like shock, joy, doubt. I totally don't see it, and then have to help them see it. So,
When I read that when I was reading the chapter thing and it said the outbound, I thought it was, and now you've explained it in a whole nother idea I hadn't even thought of. Because when I had heard about Outbound from Russell Targ, what they did back in the old days at SRI, a long time ago, is an actual person would go to the location. I did get to do one of these, and it was very phenomenal. I really enjoyed it because I was always doing targets that were in the future that haven't been selected. So I was doing all precognitive. But when they set me up with one where somebody went to an actual place and each time I'd have to describe where the person was standing, called the outbound, I found that so much more fun and easier than a picture in the future. And also because I was dealing with connecting with a human and I didn't know if it was a man or a woman, or I didn't meet the person that was out there doing it until after it was over. And they did three different locations. So that was what I was thinking when I read that. But now
mhm,
you're telling me that we can make a connection on a telepathic level with our own self projecting into the future.
mhm.
And I'd never thought of that way.
Yeah,
So thank you. That's
yeah.
a great tool. and another way of looking at outbound.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, one way it's a tool is, do you ever wonder why some people are luckier than others? Like they just tend to make the right decision more often.
Hmm.
I think it's because those types of people, when as they go through life, when they make the right decision, they acknowledge it, they celebrate it, maybe they're thankful, they express appreciation and gratitude. And I wonder if they don't, without even knowing it, they're sending the information back to their past self. Like, hey, go right, don't go left. Going right is a good thing.
Hmm.
Well, take this job in California, don't take the job in New York. Go on this date with this person, or don't go on this date with this person. But every time there's a success, they have a good connection with their past self at the time they were trying to decide what to do.
Hmm.
So I wonder if that's why some people just tend to be luckier, and maybe being lucky is trainable. Can you train yourself to whenever you make a good decision, just really relish the moment and send it back to yourself with intention, like, okay, earlier self, like this was the right way to go. And as you do that over months and years, will you naturally start to follow the flow more every time you do the right decision? It's
I
just a hypothesis, right?
I think it's very interesting. I always find, and I've wondered if anybody ever wanted to study this. But whenever I did, sections of remote viewings, like I would do, 20, it would be a completed series, and we do one or two at a time. But whenever I had positive hits and, right on whatever's, the amount of life force energy that what I feel going through me always
Mm.
gave me a lot of sexual energy. And
Hmm.
I've always been curious whether other people, after they've had these, that's what I was asking you about how the other people were feeling, because I always feel a tremendous amount of sexual energy
Mm.
after those, and I feel like filled with life force.
Hmm.
And I never feel egotistical about it that and I hate when people say, well, you're a natural psychic, you're this, that. I never think of myself in those ways. It always feels like a special moment when it happens. It always feels like, oh, great. It never feels like I'm expected that I'm going to always be right, or I never think I can tell you the answers to the. I always take it as a special thing that arrives. And when it does, I'm grateful that it's there. But I never ever feel that I'm going to say to somebody, "Oh yes, I can tell you everything right now. Sit down. I'll give you your life." I don't. I don't feel right about that.
Yeah.
But I have those experiences where information comes, and I'll share that with the persons. But I'm not taking credit for that it came from somewhere that I know I have a
Hmm.
special connection. I don't know. I
Yeah.
always just it's special and it happens, and I'm grateful. And then I always wonder, well, is those other people doing better because they're confident and they say I'm like this, or I just never know. I find it hard to believe, like when there are some people who can say, oh yes, I can do that anytime, 24/7. I can do this kind of communicating or this that thing, and that seems hard for me to believe because we're really human, and I don't think we really can do those like that. So I just trust those people who say, oh yes, I can read anyone or I can do any, I don't know, that's kind of my idea about it. But
Hmm.
uh I um I want to know here, I have a bunch of questions, so we've answered some of them. I want to know, is there a method that you find gives the most accurate information with telepathy? Because people have different approaches, and I'm wondering if there's any one which way that you feel like you tell people it's what your body feels, or when the first thing that flashes in your mind, or associate picture, or what would you say about that?
Yeah. Uh, so what I like to do is get everyone in a very relaxed and open state,
Hmm.
just like having a blank a blank screen, basically.
Yes.
Put them in a passive state where they set the intention to receive information and then they wait. Because if they start guessing or reaching, then their brain is actually going to produce false information just to fill the space. So training someone to just be quiet after setting the intention, release the intention and just wait. And then feel for any subtle impression that comes. It could be visual, but it could also be a feeling in the body. It could be anything with the five physical senses.
Hmm.
I know we have many more senses than that, but just to keep it simple, you might smell something, you might hear something, you might have a feeling. Write it all down. And if you want to draw something, go ahead and do it. But be careful not to start guessing. Just put down what the raw information is. And the probably the one of the best ways to do this is to really not care about the results. Really having a sense of humbleness, openness, innocence, um, and no expectation, and also not being judgmental. Like if you have a miss, don't make it a big deal.
Uh,
If you don't have a good session, don't make it a big deal because then the next time you're going to be more tense, right?
I think
So,
fun and laughter is always a good, that it should be fun. Enjoy
yeah,
what it is.
yeah. And so one thing I did during this retreat to try and bring in the fun and just help people get over themselves a little bit and help me get over
Hmm.
myself. I'd put a video on the projector and on the speakers, some a music, and I'd hand out song sheets, and I had us stand in a circle and just sing, because singing is so vulnerable, right?
Hmm.
Especially if you didn't expect it. Like, what? We have to sing this? Forget the words. It's a song everybody knows. Let's just stand up and sing and just kind of like loosen up. But also, I tried to choose songs that were inspiring, that would stir the heart. I think love is such a big part of this, or I try and imbue these programs with love, because love has a way of getting through the cobwebs, it has a way of cutting through fear, it has a way of softening a hard ego, it has a way of releasing expectations. So I tried to choose songs that would evoke love and then playing games with people so that they would feel more connected, helping
Hmm.
them, encouraging them to socialize, like during meal times, really cultivating a sense of meaning and enjoyment and connection with each other. I think was a big part of why the program went as well as it did, why people got the results that they got.
Hmm.
And really, I don't know if there's a really good way to measure it, but I suspect going through all the transcripts that throughout the week, the results did get better. And I don't think it's because the instructions got better. I think it's because people just simply spent more time with each other and they relaxed more. And maybe
They
they were also
connected.
just, they connected and they were also too tired to try and try harder. Instead, they got tired and they all they could do is let go. It's
Hmm.
just a good way to go. Yeah.
It's wonderful that you're doing this work and going out there and not only writing books about it, but offering an experience that they can come and learn from directly by offering. I guess the next one will be in September.
Hmm.
And I think that's a wonderful thing because then when they leave, it's not just reading a book. They've done the exercises. They've done enough of these with other people. And then they can take it back with them and say, go home to their family and say, hey, let's sit down. I'm going to hold a picture and let's see what happens. So
Hmm.
it's a great way of teaching. Is there, I'm curious about how it's determined. Like, I've only twice been a remote viewing judge, and it was for something I did for uh, the ARV, or I can't remember his name right now at the tip of my tongue. But anyway, and I'd never done that. And I was given some parameters and some ideas, but I'm curious is how do we decide that how much of the picture is described is then considered a hit, or exactly is it only where you just say yes, it's an elephant, or is it how is it determined that a hit has been made when there's been a telepathic communication like that or
Yeah.
about
Yeah, it is subjective. And I know in different remote viewing groups, when they're analyzing a transcript, there are ways to score it numerically
hmm
where you end up with a number between 1 and 10 out of 10 or something like that. But you're scoring how many elements in the transcript did connect and how many elements did not.
hmm
And maybe you come up with a percentage or something like that. Because sure, I could draw 100 squiggles on a page, and two of them will automatically match the target because I put 100 squiggles, right?
Right.
But I think like if I remember right, the first transcript in the book, the target had a couple of pine trees that were like triangles like this. And
Hmm.
the very first transcript that I shared, it was simple. It was just a triangle, very clearly matching the significant shape of the target and nothing else. So it's not like a whole bunch of guesswork and one thing happened to match. It was like that. That's all they put.
Hmm.
Like that's what I got.
Wow.
So, but it really, honestly, it is a subjective process to judge. Was it a hit? Was it
Hmm.
not a hit? Everyone, I could show a target in a transcript to 10 different people, and they'll probably have different levels of confidence that it was a connection.
Well,
You
the reason I ask you this is because yesterday, before having you as my guest today, I was out. It's in California. It's been 89, 90 degrees here in March. This is not normal weather here. It's made historical, record-breaking weather. So I was out on my boat on the lake because it was a beautiful day to be out there. And I invited someone I don't know to come with me who I met in a store. And I met her in this store that I go to regularly because it's a discount store, and each week they have different stuff, and it's a set price. Everything is $5 or everything is $6, and I have a ball in there. So each time I came in, somehow we started to talk, and somehow, like I was shocked when she told me that she asked me something about myself, and I said something about my podcast, remote viewing. And she said, "Oh, yes, I've studied that on my own. I do remote viewing." And I said, "Oh, I have a great book for you by my friend Jean Millay." In fact, it was one of the last copies because of it out of print. In fact, I'm wearing Jean's dress now to match with the report you found of Jean. So Jean is here with us today. And she said, yeah, I'm really interested in that kind of stuff. So each time that I came in to shop, I would just mention something, and she was like the last person that, she's cashiering me. I didn't expect we were going to talk about psychic things, but because you're out in the public and I don't have any filters, I just say all these things to people, and you never know what happens. So I said to her, "Would you like to come with me out on my boat?" I've only actually seen her out of the store once before yesterday's boat. So we had lunch together once, and we knew that we seemed to have a lot in common. Well, on the boat, I found out we have a lot in common. Be strange, similar life story things. Her name is Jessica. David said we looked like Gandalf and Frodo because she's really, really tall and I'm really, really short. And I brought along a gift you had given me of telepathy training, send and receive deck. And I thought, I'm going to take it out to the lake. It's just the two of us, and we'll see what happens. And I do have to say, the images, we're in the middle of this huge lake. The sun is shining. There's an occasional boat here and there, but there's the two of us, one sitting behind the steering wheel there and the other on the side, and both of our eyes are closed and the motor's running. And we're doing these telepathy cards.
know.
So I just wanted to know what the setting was. It wasn't exactly like, and it wasn't a plan. How do we do this? So we followed all the instructions, which you said, don't look at a card until you reach the instructions. So we read the instructions, and then we proceeded to do 16 cards because we had to end because darkness was coming, and also, we could have almost driven into a rock or a thing. So all of a sudden I looked up and I said, "Oh, I don't know if we should keep our eyes closed while we're doing this." Anyway, I was blown away at what happened. The point of this is that these are two people who do not know each other. So you can't say we're having telepathy because we've been friends for years or this kind of thing. She is not someone like me who's worked with scientists and blah, 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 and whatever things I've done over the years and whatever. She's just this lady who has these things and has all these dreams and whatever, and doesn't necessarily have a lot of friends to talk to about these sort of things. So we decided to do the telepathy, and we did 16 cards. And I don't know I'm not good with statistic. We did 16 cards. She had 6, 6, 6, 12. We had three incorrect out of the 16.
Wow.
And in the 13 that were left, six and six, she had seven correct and I had six. What happened in those seven and six is that two of the six that I did, I said exactly what the card was.
Huh.
And three of the cards she did was exactly the card. And it
Wow.
was blowing my mind because I didn't know whether like should we each take it. So we did it where we each took a turn. So first I sent and she received, then she sent and I received. Meanwhile, we're driving the boat at the same time. What the clock, and the first card I did with her, and when it came up, I didn't know what to do. I was so shocked that she was so right on. I was looking at your photo of the lava flow, and she immediately says, "Oh, volcano with lava." I said to her, "We don't have to go any further." You know?
Yeah.
So the giraffes, when I did the card with it, and she's naming it, I didn't hear her say giraffe. So then she says gorilla or something, and I say, well, no, that's not it. Let's go on. I show her the giraffe. She said, I said giraffes. I couldn't hear her because the motor from the boat was blaring in my ear. And we were separating the piles so we would know at the end, like you said.
Yeah.
And that was all we could do because we didn't, because it was the end of the day. But the ones that we got exact were almost instantaneous. So there was something that I considered was that I was sure that's probably what you would call it. It was a monument. She described it as a monument, and when I looked at it, I said, "I think that is a monument."
Mm-hmm.
And when she held up the card for me, and I said, "Oh, it's a waterfall." I mean, it was a waterfall. So we had like, let's see. So we had out of those amount, we had five where we said exactly what the picture was.
Yeah.
Then in the rest of them, that was my question for you. We would have elements of it, but we wouldn't say the exact thing. And so I wasn't sure, do we put it in the pile or don't we put it in the pile? But I felt like when there was enough things, when you picked the color and a shape and a thing, I felt that even though she didn't say kangaroo or whatever, it
Yeah.
was all the things in the picture.
Yeah.
Or if there was a piece missing, you had one I thought was a fantastic card. Was that the one with the giraffes and there was two animals on the side and a car driving?
Giraffes. Yeah.
Yes, and I thought to myself, what a contrast in this card to be able to pick this up. And so anyway, so I just had to share that with you because first of all, I think these are a great set of cards to do this with and the photos in there and the pictures that you have that in there are wonderful. Of course, I've got 80 more to go through or whatever here with her, but her and I are going to continue to do this together now that we realize we have this new friendship and we seem to have a lot of similar gifts or whatever you want to call this in this world, and that we're going to continue doing that with each other. And we shared some other intimate stories about you know, experiences, whether I don't know what to say, they're not dreams, but they're where you experience some presence that's not of a human form.
Mm-hmm.
And she described exactly what I had just seen recently. And for her, it was so comforting for me to say, I know that machine you're talking about, that you're looking at. And I was having the same so there was a comfort in both of us having these things. So I guess what I'm truly trying to share here is that when you share your stories and your things like this with another person, you can find that you're not unique and it's not special and unusual. There are lots of people having these things, but some are afraid to share it because they think people think they're crazy or whatever. But when you find like-minded people and you share these things, you only learn more things about what can be done.
Mm-hmm.
So I just had to stick that in there because we just did it yesterday and you were coming today and none of that was really planned like that. So I had to tell you about that. So we've only done an hour right now, and I have a few more questions I'd like to go over just quickly.
Sure.
And I was just hoping we could touch a little bit on telekinesis right now. If you have the time, I would love if you could have another 15 minutes available. Are you good?
Yep.
Okay, so before I finished on the book, did any of the people in your group leave and say, "Oh, I can't do this. None of this will ever work for me." And so there was no one that had a negative experience. They all had a positive experience.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say everyone had at least one piece of evidence from their work that showed that they had this
That,
ability. Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
So they couldn't deny that this was happening.
No, no.
I mean, not that they wanted to, but I'm
Yeah,
just saying they were being shown.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
So
What
this,
the challenge is not that people don't compare themselves to other people, because some people are just naturally a little more talented than others. But I don't want people to feel bad if they're not like a superstar or something like that. That's not what it's about. And it's just
no.
natural to compare ourselves to others. But to minimize the comparison, just enjoy what little success you had, if it wasn't much.
And how large was your group?
24 people.
24 people. Well, that's
Yeah,
a
so
nice number.
I try and keep it small so it's people have high quality contact with each other and with me.
Hmm.
So,
Hmm.
I couldn't imagine doing something with like 100 or 200 people.
No, no.
It's,
I'm all for that in these experiences, them being intimate instead of massive.
yeah.
So I just want to, I'm very happy about all the new books, your new books and your other books. But I wanted to talk just a little bit about telekinesis, which I know you have books and videos on. But I am working on this, and I'm not sure where I spaced out and didn't call you about this. I have a few questions about it. One simple question, if you could just answer to the audience, is what is the difference between telekinesis and psychokinesis? Is it the same thing? Are they using a different word? Are they wanting to use two words? Or why is there two words?
Sure. Okay. So if we break down the word telekinesis, kinesis indicates movement. Tele implies at a distance. So we can say anytime your hands are not on the thing, that means you're moving it at a distance, causing it to move or change qualities somehow. Psychokinesis just means movement or change through the effort of the mind. So, in the case of, let's say, spoon bending, at the most basic level of spoon bending, you're holding the spoon with both hands, and the metal becomes softer.
Mhm.
You still have to use a little muscular tension to bend it, but
Yes.
you're not bending at brute force. There's something happens with a spoon bending experience that softens the metal. It becomes like pretty firm clay, and then you can bend it and twist it and do all sorts of stuff. But your hands are touching it, so you can't say it's at a distance. So it's
Right.
mind over matter, but you're touching it. If it's telekinesis, it's mind over matter, but you're not touching it because you're distant from the object.
Even if no one in our audience needed to know this, I needed to know this. So I've been, and I just wasn't sure how to refer it. So now I want to ask you, in your years of telekinesis experience, have you done it from another room? Because this is the task I was asked to do, and I was wondering how hard it is to do that. And have you been able to do that?
Yeah, and I'll send you a link. You can put it in the description if you want. Of
Yes.
this is when I used to live in a condo that I used to live in. I started a telekinesis session in my condo it was on the 10th floor, and then I kept a camera running, and I took another camera with me. I go in the hallway, I take an elevator down, I go into the next building, which is the garage, and I sit in my car, and now I'm just imagining the object and I'm keeping it moving, right? And the way you can tell that it's legitimate telekinesis is, at least with the technique I use and teach, it has to do with you combining your how you breathe with how you use your intention. So the way the object moves will can sometimes be in sync with your breath.
Hmm.
You inhale, it turns one direction. You exhale, and then it goes the opposite. Or you can hold your breath in, and it'll stop and pause, and then you exhale, and it starts moving. And for those people listening, we're not talking about an object exposed to the air. Like there's a glass container over it. So it's not like you're breathing on it, moving it.
Hmm.
And especially if you're in another room
So
and
did you
someone
have
else is.
someone watching it to see whether it was moving, or did you have a camera, or how did you know it was moving if you weren't looking at it?
Yeah,
Or were you?
I didn't know till the end because I did have a camera on it.
Oh, okay.
I had a camera with me as I went down to the garage and sat in my car. And it was
Hmm.
only after, because I didn't know, am I being successful or not? I don't know. I'm just using my imagination here. To
Right.
come back and look at the video feed from both and see that, oh my gosh, this worked. I maintained the connection.
And it was in
So
the bell jar.
yeah.
Okay. So
So
here
so
comes
let's
my next question.
yeah.
I have two of them here. I have a tall bell jar that has a paper in it that was a spiral, and I have no trouble. Once I got the idea, which I'm not sure what it is, but whatever it is that happened, once I could start doing it, I could always do I can always make the paper move.
Hmm.
And the longest time I've been able to focus and keep concentrating was 30 minutes. So I kept it moving for 30 minutes.
Uh-huh.
That was my longest like session or whatever you want to call it. I then have George Weissman, the physicist who started me doing this, sent me something called it has a name, the meter or it's the little,
The Egley wheel?
yeah, the little four pieces of metal that, and it's on a
Oh,
pin.
okay. Yeah, yeah.
So now when I use that one under the glass, I can't get any response. But when I take the glass off and I make sure, like, I put a mask on my face because I want to be sure it wasn't my breath because it's such a delicate instrument that, your breath could make it move.
Hmm.
And I stood at, I kept my chair like, a foot away from the item, just put my hands at a distance. And when I do that with it, I can get it to twirl. It goes in other directions. I seem to have like a control over it. If I say in my mind telepathically, I say, "Oh, I want you to go right," it'll start turning right, or say, "Stop, go left." But then as soon as I put the jar on it, I can't get any response.
Yeah.
Any idea about what's going on there?
Yeah, so this is kind of a complex explanation. Hopefully your listeners aren't going to get bored with this, but so because you're focusing on like whether it's that little thing you're talking about or the twirl of paper,
The twirl of paper, I have no problem
you have no
with.
problem. But see,
No.
in both cases, we think we're focusing on that object, and our focus is making the object move. Right. That's the overall. But I have a suspicion after doing so much of this that something completely different is at play.
Mhm.
That we are expressing our intention for the object to move, and something bigger than us hears what our desire is,
Mhm.
and it does something to physics, to physically, to produce the effect we want. So that's to say, let's say for the twirly paper inside the container, maybe we want the twirly paper to move. The universe or God or greater consciousness knows that. And I think one thing it could be doing is reorganizing the random movement of the air molecules inside the bell jar to
Uh-huh.
push on the object for us. Because without intention, all the air molecules and atoms, they're moving randomly in all directions. But if they were to reorganize and move coherently and push on the object, right? So that means the bell jar might help to contain the air a certain way so that consciousness can rearrange how the air inside of it moves and pushes on it like a sail.
Mhm.
So, but with the other object, maybe because of the shape of the thing, it's such that it's much more difficult. You need something else to happen with the air, and so maybe that's why you're more successful without the air, right? Because of whatever is happening between your consciousness, the greater consciousness, and then basic physics of air movement, even flow of heat from your body, all
Uh-huh.
that can affect it. Physics always is always going to be an intermediary between our intention and what happens. It's not it seems magical, but it's not. Somehow our intention
Mhm.
and our consciousness is affecting molecules and atoms and electricity and everything else and maybe even gravity to produce these effects. Yeah.
I actually, I may be one of the listeners who understands what you said because when I did spoon bending, And my first success was a fork. Then I was able to do spoon bending with our dear friend Donna Ribadow.
Oh yeah.
Uh, that was how I experienced when I did the fork. It was with Jack Hoke. He was you know,
The
the
father of the
spoon
museum
bending
director.
master.
Yeah.
And I experienced that when I was holding the metal and I felt it get hot. I experienced in my vision, in my mind somewhere, exactly molecules all jumping up and down. And when those molecules were jumping up and down, that's when I knew I could bend the fork.
Hmm.
And that was my whole image of how I actually bent the fork. But I never thought of applying it to the molecules of air inside the glass. I'm going to have a whole nother approach to try now. I never even, that's a wonderful, so I'm going to try the metal thing with the idea. I'm just going to see. I still haven't been able to get it to move under the jar. Out of the jar, I can get it to do everything.
Hmm.
But in the jar, I'm going to give it to try, and I'll try with the idea of imaging the molecules of air inside and having them all moving in the same direction.
Hmm.
So, and I'll let you know what happens.
Okay. Good.
And on the distance, I've been able to get so far like 3 feet away.
Hmm.
And I think part of my issue might be confidence
Yeah.
and that's why I wanted to hear you're the only second person I've met who said, oh, yes, you can do it from another room. I've done it. And that makes me feel more that this is possible.
Yeah. Well, and I should be totally um, transparent and say, like, if I tried it today, I probably wouldn't be able to do it. When I did that one, I've been training over and over, so my confidence was up, my ability was up. It's a trainable thing. And if you don't train for a good long time, it's going to take time to come back to it.
I saw that when I went away on a trip
Hmm.
and I was in Europe and I was gone for a month. And then I came back and I said, I wonder if I could be able to get the paper to twirl again.
Uh-huh.
And that when I was able to sustain it for 30 minutes, it was when I was doing it every day for a little bit.
Yeah.
And I've noticed that when I do it every day, it gets stronger and stronger and twirls, and there's more response. And I don't have to sit there for less than a minute to get activation.
Yep.
But it felt like riding a bike or something.
Yeah.
Like as soon as I went back to my jar again, or to my paper, the first day it took me more like 3 minutes. And I was getting annoyed at myself that it was 3 minutes.
Right.
Where when I first tried it a year and a half ago, it took me 15 minutes.
Uh-huh.
So now I'm used to it taking 30 seconds to a minute. So I expect every time that's going to be like that. And it just takes it's like a bike ride, like you ride a bike. You just have to get back on again.
Right.
And the next thing I know, by the second day, I'm having instant response. So I really feel that the telekinesis thing really does improve drastically with continued everyday practice of it.
Right.
And I think you're saying the same. Yeah. And
And that's evidence right there that it's the real deal. Because some people say just by sitting in front of it, your body heat is going to change the airflow. And if that were true, then you'd be successful at the same rate every time, no matter what,
mhm.
if that was the explanation. No, what you just said is the evidence that with practice, it happens faster, it happens more powerfully. Well, then that's not random. That's not just because you're sitting in front of it. No, this is evidence that somehow your mind and your confidence and your ability improves over time. That's a skill. That's not random physical effect.
Well, what I did also have to try was at first I was afraid to do it in front of anyone else
Yep.
because I thought something would happen or I'd feel like, oh, I'm going to fail or whatever craziness was in my mind. And then I realized, no, I could do this in front of anybody. First I did it in front of my husband, then my children, my niece, and then I said, oh, I could do this in front of anybody. Doesn't matter who they are. So then decided that the one thing I wanted to try was different children and what would happen when children came into my house.
Mm-hmm.
So when I showed the children what I would do, I would see if they'd have an interest. And I had some children who could do it instantly.
Yeah.
And I'm talking 8 years old, not like 15 or something like this. And there was something so wonderful to see the look in their face when they saw that they could do this. and some other children, like they could sat there and nothing happened. So I found it was like an interesting thing to just try other. I don't. Anyways, have you ever done that with children, or has it all been mostly
Yeah, adults, really. I'm not surprised to hear that children can do it very easily,
yes,
or some children, right?
some,
Because you
yes,
have to
not
experience
all.
it. Some can, some can't. Also, if you get the wrong person in the room, it can stop everything.
Uh, a negativity.
Yeah,
I know exactly how that works.
yeah. I mean, I remember one time I flew out to California and was working with some people, and the last day they had a thermometer inside the thing to measure heat movement, and it was moving with the heat. And but the scientist was right here behind my shoulder, going, "Look, it's the heat! It's the heat!" Right in my ear, and I'm trying to get to move, and I'm feeling stressed out. I'm like, I gotta perform, and I'm like, do it, trying. I'm not following any of my own instructions. And he's like, look, it's the heat doing it. It's like, well, Jesus, give me a break here. Like, but he's like right here barking in my ear and the computer and all this stuff. I was like, oh, I felt like I flew home so embarrassed because I felt like I failed completely. There was another time a guy came out with a camera. He was going to do a documentary and I could still do it, but it was so much weaker because I'm like, oh, for a documentary. I'm too self-conscious.
I don't
I
like
wish I were
asking
more
to
like
be,
you.
I don't like to be asked to perform,
Yeah.
but for some reason, when you turn a camera on me, I do it. I don't know how or why or what. I think I must like the attention. That's the only thing I can figure. Because
Yeah,
but I always preface it with, I don't know if anything will work or happen,
yeah,
but I'll be willing to try.
yeah,
That relieves me of that feeling of, oh, I'm supposed to perform for them and now I'm under pressure. I can't do that. I need to feel like, hey, something great may happen, nothing may happen. We don't know. Let's
yeah,
see what happens. But I had to go to that attitude.
yeah. Well, and that's one reason why I'm focusing more on telepathy in the last couple of years than telekinesis. Because the telekinesis, when someone who doesn't know enough sees it, it's too easy for them to criticize it, to doubt it, to explain it away. It's too easy. But telepathy, if I'm thinking something and I'm focusing on a drawing and someone is across the room with a blindfold on and they draw what I'm thinking, it's much harder to doubt that.
Yes, and I did that experiment. I think, isn't the Gansfield experiment, isn't that proof of, is that proof considered proof of telepathy?
It can be, yeah. The ping pong
I
balls
had,
and the
yes, I
pink
had the
light
ping
and the
pong
white
balls on
noise.
and
Yeah, yeah,
the
yeah.
whole thing.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm in Paul Smith's book, but you don't know it's me because you see the ping pong balls in the course. And I'm reading his book on
Yeah,
military remote viewing. And I
yeah,
go back and I say, Paul, I'm in your book. He said, you are? And he said, oh, I got that slide from Dean Radin. I didn't know it was you. I'm going to put your name in there.
yeah. That's why I can't wait for you to publish your book about your life because you've been in a lot of
Yeah, I got
situations.
a lot of stories.
You've influenced a lot of people, and you've been an influence in my life in the most wonderful ways. So,
Oh, thank you.
yeah.
I feel the same about you, and you've brought some wonderful people in my life, and our time in Colorado was absolutely fabulous. And I
Mhm.
want to come back because my friend Tugi moved there from Mongolia, and he opened up a nail salon, and so I'm planning on a trip to Colorado at some point to come and see everybody at one time. And I'm hoping for all my Colorado friends to come to California and visit us sometime, and maybe you'll have a class out in our event center, and
Yeah,
you can teach telepathy to a group of local California people.
yeah.
So, what I like to do now as I end my show is I always like my guests to say anything they want. It's whatever you like, anything you want to share. I call it the words of wisdom, but it's whatever you would like to share with the audience before we say goodbye.
Oh, wow. Um, okay. I mean, what comes to mind really is, and this comes from the very last chapter in my book, that at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter how psychic a person is. We're
Right.
all intrinsic parts of this universe. And I think part of our role in being alive is to generate or cultivate meaning. And meaning can come from so many different directions. Like these days, I don't care about being psychic. I still love teaching it because I like
Hmm.
connecting to people. That gives me meaning. That's partly why I'm a therapist. But I'm more interested in, like, right now I'm learning to play the banjo. I'm more interested in playing the banjo than I am in telekinesis, honestly,
Yes.
right? Because that
Yes.
really fulfills me, and I make music, and that there's something to that. And one day I won't be alive anymore, and I won't be able to do that in the same way, assuming there's an afterlife. So I just some people are stressed out, like, oh, I'm not psychic. I wish I was like those people, or I
Uh,
wish I was like those kids. Forget about it. Just find
exactly.
what lights you up. Find a way to experience love and connection, whatever that is. That's the most important thing. The psychic stuff, we'll all be dead someday. Then we'll be fully psychic, right? Because we'll all be in the mental space at
Right.
that point. Yeah, yeah.
Yep. Well, that's very wonderful, good words of wisdom. And I want to tell all our listeners, I want to thank you for being here. I want to thank you for liking, subscribing, commenting, sharing. I want to thank my children, Richard, for producing the show, and Nancy for posting it, and for my husband, David, for writing the descriptions. So I want to thank everyone for joining us today and remind them to share your stories because we know that stories can heal. Have a wonderful week, and we'll see you soon. Bye.